Hi, welcome to Tantrums Oracle. Thank you for joining me today. So today we're going to be talking about the Age of Aquarius. So to share some insights about the Age of Aquarius, what it means and how it shows up in today's world and what it asks of us spiritually. So astrologers say humanity moves through great cycles called astrological ages. Each one lasts about 2,000 years and is linked to a zodiac sign. That sign sets the tone for culture, society, and even the way we approach spirituality. For the past 2,000 years, we've been in the age of in the age of Pisces, an age focused on faith, devotion, sacrifice, and spiritual authority. Now we are transitioning into the age of Aquarius, which is about community, innovation, and collective awareness. Aquarius brings a different energy. It's about freedom, individuality, and equality. It's about humanitarian values, thinking about the good of the collective rather than just the self. It's also linked to innovation in technology, such as new ways of communicating, connecting, and solving problems. Aquarius energy pushes us toward questioning authority, breaking old traditions, and experimenting with fresh ideas. But most importantly, this age invites us to expand into collective consciousness, to recognize that humanity is interconnected and that our choices ripple outward to affect the whole. We can already see these themes in action. Social justice movements and activism reflect the Aquarian call for equality. The rise of global technology, from AI to social media to space exploration, is very Aquarian in nature. Spiritually, more people are seeking outside traditional religions. They're exploring meditation, energy work, astrology, and mysticism, often blending ancient traditions with modern science. There's also more emphasis on personal experience, trusting your inner knowing rather than relying on external authority. Of course, every age has its challenges, and Aquarius is no exception. The same technology that connects us can also disconnect us, leading to overwhelm, distraction, and shallow interactions. The desire for freedom and rebellion can lead to division, polarization, and conflict. With traditions breaking down, some people feel ungrounded or lost. And in spirituality, there's a risk of chasing trends or building an identity around being spiritual instead of doing the real deep inner work. Aquarius energy can also become too intellectual or detached, valuing ideas and information over heart and embodied wisdom. For those who are spiritually inclined, this shift is powerful. On the positive side, it offers freedom from rigid dogma and the ability to connect directly with spirit. It encourages collaborative communities instead of hierarchical structures, and it allows science and spirituality to work together rather than be in opposition. But the challenges are just as real. There's an overwhelming flood of spiritual information available online, and not all of it is grounded or authentic. And some seekers become lost in endless learning without practice. And others get caught up in the ego trap and they are creating a spiritual identity instead of actually evolving, not involving. The age of Aquarius pushes spiritualists to balance individuality with collective responsibility, to find their unique voice while contributing to the greater good. This age is shifting the spiritual mindset. We're moving from blind faith toward inner knowing, from isolation toward community awareness, from rigid tradition towards innovation, and from waiting for change to actively co creating it. It's a move from a passive spirituality to a participatory one where we don't just seek enlightenment for ourselves, but we consider how our awakening can ripple out to help heal the collective. And the biggest challenge for the spiritual collective in this new age is integration. Aquarius wants innovation and freedom, but without grounding, people can float away in theories and trends. So the work is to ground spirituality in daily life, to bring mystical ideas into real world action, to balance individuality with service, and to practice discernment, asking, does this teaching truly resonate? Does it align with love and integrity, or is it just noise? This discernment will be one of the most important skills for spiritual seekers in this era. To navigate this shift, you can learn, you can lean on certain practices such as grounding rituals, and that is walking barefoot, journaling, connecting with earth, embodied practices such as yoga, breath work, ecstatic dance, meditation and silence for clarity and discernment, community circles for sharing and support, spiritual activism, combining inner growth with outer change, like environmental or humanitarian work, conscious use of technology, treating it as a tool rather than a master. And these practices will help us stay rooted while expanding into the collective consciousness Aquarius calls us toward. Not everyone embraces this shift. For some, the age of Aquarius feels threatening. It disrupts rigid hierarchies, authoritarian structures, and systems of control. It challenges dogmatic religions that rely on blind faith and obedience. It threatens gatekeepers who once controlled knowledge because now information flows freely. So we see resistance. Some people cling to tradition or authority, fearing change. Others respond with skepticism, cynicism, or outright rejection of anything new. This tension between old and new is part of the collective growing pains of the moving into a new age. In simple terms, the age of Aquarius threatens structures that thrive on control, secrecy, and hierarchy. It challenges authoritarian power and rigid hierarchies, dogmatic religions that discourage questioning, social systems built on inequality, materialistic worldviews that deny spirit or interconnection. In other words, anything that resists freedom, equality, innovation, or collective awareness will feel shaken by this shift. The age of Aquarius is both an opportunity and a test. It offers us freedom, innovation, and collective consciousness, but it also asks us to stay grounded, discerning, and responsible. For spiritual seekers, this is a call to rise into authentic practice, to embody wisdom, not just study it, to innovate while honoring what is true and timeless, to use individuality not for ego, but as a contribution to the collective. Ultimately, this age invites us to live in a new balance, to embrace freedom without losing connection, to honor individuality while serving unity, and to allow science, technology, and spirituality to weave together into a more conscious future. So now I want to talk about the divine feminine, what it is, and what happens when it's absent, and how its reawakening is reshaping our world. This isn't about gender, but about energies, two archetypal forces that live in every one of us and in the collective structures we build. The divine feminine is the energy of intuition, nurturing, compassion, receptivity, and creativity. It's the flow of life, the cycles of nature, the wisdom of body, the womb of creation, and the power of transformation. Its counterpart, the divine masculine, holds the qualities of action, clarity, structure, and protection. Together, these energies balance each other, heart and mind, being and doing, flow and form. Yes, the divine masculine energy can exist in the absence or suppression of divine feminine energy, but when that happens, it rarely remains healthy. Without the divine feminine, the masculine falls into shadow. It becomes over controlling instead of protective. It becomes rigid instead of structured. It becomes exploitative instead of sustaining. And it becomes disconnected from emotion, intuition, and the deeper rhythms of life. So while The divine masculine can exist alone. It becomes force without flow, like a river with no banks to guide it. This imbalance is what we see reflected in this patriarchal system that dominate much of our world today. Patriarchy prizes hierarchy, productivity, conquest, and control. It glorifies rationality and dismisses intuition. It drives constant doing and achievement while rest and receptivity are undervalued. It exploits nature, seeing Earth as a resource to dominate rather than a living being to honor. This is not the divine masculine in its highest form. It's the masculine operating without its feminine balance. It is power without compassion, structure without nurture, and progress without sustainability. Why has patriarchy endured? Because a divine masculine dominant system does provide certain benefits: clear order, strong leadership, and technological and material advancement. It mobilizes people quickly, creates laws, and offers stability. But the costs are steep. A society without divine feminine suffers from burnout, disconnection, exploitation of resources, suppression of emotion, and inequality. It creates brittle power systems that seem strong but collapse without the resilience and adaptability that divine feminine provides. And importantly, it hurts both men and women. Men are trapped in rigid roles that deny vulnerability and softness, and women are stripped of their voices, wisdom, and spiritual power, and the collective is cut off from wholeness. Spirituality, or spiritually, the absence of divine feminine shows up in our religions and sacred traditions. Many patriarchal faiths exalt the father, the king, the sky god, while suppressing or erasing the mother, the goddess, the mysteries of the womb, the moon, and the earth. Without divine feminine, spirituality becomes head without heart, law without mercy, form without essence. The mystical, intuitive, and embodied aspects of the divine are silenced. The divine masculine alone offers transcendence and clarity, but cut off from the feminine, it becomes hollow dogma without spirit. Conquest without compassion, and transcendence without embodiment. So, what happens when the divine feminine begins to rise again in a long standing patriarchal system? On a personal level, it feels like people turning inward, trusting intuition, reclaiming rest, reconnecting to their bodies, exploring creativity, and doing deep inner healing. On a collective level, it looks like movements for equality, sustainability, and social justice. It looks like a return to goddess archetypes, moon cycles, earth centered spirituality, and indigenous wisdom. It looks like people questioning hierarchies, decentralizing power, and valuing collaboration over domination. Spiritually, it feels like the return of mystery, the sacralizing of the body and earth, and the weaving back together of heart and mind, being and doing. The rise of the divine feminine in today's world is both liberating and uncomfortable. It is liberating because it reconnects us to love, creativity, and wholeness. It is uncomfortable because it forces us to face grief, shadow, and the wounds of suppression. It feels chaotic because patriarchal systems resist and push back against divine feminine energy. It feels healing because long suppressed wisdom and compassion are finally surfacing. It feels magnetic because art, storytelling, and spiritual expression are flourishing. It feels like a return to unity, heaven and earth, masculine and feminine, coming back together. So when we ask, what is the divine feminine, or can the masculine exist without it? We see that these are not just abstract spiritual questions, they are living realities woven into our societies, our religions, and our very bodies. The patriarchy, sorry, shows us what happens when the divine masculine exists without divine feminine. Structure becomes rigid, protection becomes control, and power becomes domination. But the rise of the divine feminine today shows us what healing looks like: intuition restored, compassion embraced, and balance in return. The divine masculine and the divine feminine are not meant to dominate one another. They are meant to dance together, equal, sacred, and whole. And as divine feminine rises now, we are witnessing the rebalancing of the human soul and the collective spirit. And if we look at the divine masculine and the divine feminine through tarot, the emperor would represent the masculine: structure, authority, and clarity. In balance, he provides stability and guidance. Without the feminine, he slips into shadow, rigid control, domination, and cold authority. This mirrors the patriarchal system, organized and strong, but disconnected from intuition, emotion, and creativity. The Empress represents the feminine, nurturing, creation, and intuition. In balance, she brings life, flow, and connection to cycles of nature. Alone, she can become chaotic, unfocused, or over nurturing without boundaries. Together, upright, they show balance, structure guided by love, leadership aligned with compassion, and creation grounded in form. The rise of the divine feminine today is like the empress returning to sit beside the emperor, restoring wholeness, reconnecting intuition with action and heart with mind. This perfectly aligns with the Age of Aquarius energy, which calls for collective awakening, equality, and innovation. Aquarius brings forth progressive thinking, community consciousness, and spiritual evolution. The return of the divine feminine within the masculine mirrors this Aquarian ideal: collaboration over domination, intuition paired with vision, and heart centered action, guiding humanity toward a more balanced, harmonious future. In essence, the Empress and Emperor working in harmony are a microcosm of the Age of Aquarius, a time when old hierarchies give way to equality, creativity, and spiritual wholeness. Duality, the interplay of complementary opposites, is the foundation for balance, growth, and wholeness. In tarot, the emperor embodies the divine masculine: structure, clarity, and protection, and the empress embodies the divine feminine: intuition, nurturing, and creativity. Alone, each has limitations. The masculine can become rigid and controlling, while the feminine can become unfocused or over nurturing. Together, upright, they create balance, action guided by intuition, creation grounded in structure, leadership aligned with compassion. This dynamic reflects the rise of the divine feminine today. This duality perfectly aligns with the Age of Aquarius, an era of awakening, equality, and spiritual evolution. Just as Aquarius encourages collaboration, innovation, and heart centered progress, the balance of the masculine and feminine energy fosters collective harmony, sustainable growth, and a deeper connection to the cycles of life. In essence, duality, masculine and feminine together, is what allows humanity to flourish in both action and intuition, vision and compassion, forms and flow. So I hope that you understand what I'm trying to say without actually saying it, and that you can apply it to your life. And once we understand what is going on, it's easier to deal with what is happening around us every day, because we understand and we don't look at it in a negative way. So you can leave your comments in the comment section. And thank you.